Welcome back to Law and Crime, ladies and gentlemen. We will be here throughout the evening to extend our coverage of the trial of Kellen Winslow II, the former NFL player accused of a series of sex crimes involving 5 different women. The total accusations adding up to 12 counts. And it's a series of sex crimes, including felony, rape, forcible oral copulation. Just going through the list here, again, 5 different women. All 5 of the accusers have taken the stand up until this point, and testimony throughout the day has involved friends and people who took complaints from these 5 accusers, the so-called Jane Does 1 through 5. We're going to listen back now to some of the key testimony of Jane Doe number 4. She is the youngest accuser who says that Kellen Winslow II attacked her when she was 17. These are some of the key accusations from Jane Doe number 4 against Kellen Winslow II. Attorney Lisa Wells is with me tonight from Georgia. Lisa, good to see you again. Okay, so what do you make of the accusations from this woman? She has a couple of different accusations rolled in together. There was one location where she says sex occurred, but that is being described by many people as somewhat of a consensual encounter. And then there was this second encounter, and the second encounter is what people are saying is rape. Let's talk about the dynamic there a little bit, because she was underage and therefore legally couldn't consent in California at the time based on my read of the law. So I think that's sort of odd, don't you?
Well, I don't know what the statute of limitations on statutory rape is. I would think it would be a long time, but honestly, in Georgia, she would have to be under 16. So I did not realize that was the law, and because she was 17 at the time, if I'm not mistaken.
It's 18 in California, based on my read of it.
Wow. Okay. Way different here, but so not knowing what the statute of limitations is. That's another issue. So, we have to put that aside, because that's something that apparently they chose not to pursue for some legal reason. Otherwise, they probably would have done that as well. But the second one, of course, is the one that she's saying absolutely was not consensual, although it sounds like it started off being consensual. Well, not actually even consensual. She's not sure, apparently, because she was intoxicated or either drugged, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to sort of unravel with this testimony. Generally speaking, though, is it the sort of witness that you think jurors are going to believe?
She seemed very credible to me, especially the fact that she's telling some ugly parts about herself. He basically had her admit that she hooked up with someone that she had just met. That's not flattering. But she said, yep, I did that. That was consensual. I willingly went upstairs with him. I willingly made out with him. And yeah, that was completely mutual. So she's owning the parts that don't make her look great, but are making her look very credible.
We're going to continue on with our review of testimony from the so-called Jane Doe number 4, the 4th of 5 accusers against Kellen Winslow II. Here's more as she describes this encounter. Testimony there from an investigator with the district attorney's office who spoke apparently with a couple of Jane Does, people who were familiar with conversations involving the Jane Does. Attorney Lisa Wells is with me here on Law and Crime tonight. So, Lisa, again, we're sort of back in this pattern in California of not just listening to the witnesses, but everyone who basically spoke with everyone who spoke with those witnesses as well.
Yeah. Well, part of it's just to explain the context and the conduct, just to help explain sort of what was going on with these witnesses and what their behavior was.
And we're hearing just in the midst of this that the state did indeed rest its case in chief. We heard yesterday that things were moving very quickly in this prosecution of Kellen Winslow II. They may be taking a break of some sort here, but the state has rested and wrapped up here. So now we're waiting for the defense case in chief to begin. The big question is exactly where that's going to go, because we also heard yesterday that one of the possible defense witnesses may be this friend of the defendants who was allegedly involved in the sex attack on Jane Doe number 4. If that person is called, that person needs his own attorney, and the judge is in the process of lining that up, because that person may have to take the 5th or maybe get some kind of an immunity deal. So that's going to be interesting. But we were told that that person would not testify today, that it would take time for that to happen. That's if the defense calls that witness. We don't know where things are going to go from here. We're going to be back there with more live coverage of the Winslow case after this break here on Law and Crime. And we just heard from an investigator who handles the family protection unit at the Sheriff's Department, who spoke with Jane Doe number 4, that Jane Doe number 4 didn't give a lot of detail in an initial interview, but we heard on cross-examination by the state that basically she really didn't want to have her own case prosecuted. She primarily came forward because she was interested in helping other victims. Attorney Lisa Wells with me from Georgia. So Lisa, sounds to me like the reason she might not have given a lot of detail is because as the prosecution got out of that witness, she really didn't want her case to wind up here in litigation.
Yeah, and it sounds like that she called because there was a cry, basically a call for any individual that may have information regarding Kellen Winslow. So she thought, well, I do. And so she called. And of course, at that point, they're probably trying to vet people to see if it rings to be credible. Who knows what kind of calls they're getting. And so they probably did just want the kind of the down and dirty, the nuts and bolts, to try to assess whether it was a credible call, and then to follow up from there.
Yeah, exactly. So ultimately the question is does that somehow make her less credible if she didn't spill the entire can of beans, bean by bean, during an initial interview?
She was told not to. So she was just following directions. So there's no way I think that could hurt her credibility personally. And I really don't know why the defense called her. I don't think it helped their case.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go next. I mean, so if that's the best the defense has got, does the defense not have much?
So far, so bad. I was not impressed with that witness for their side. I actually think it bolstered the prosecution side personally.
I think that that's the way it played out as well. Look, we're going to go back in. We have another witness on the stand. This is live testimony in the sex crimes prosecution of Kellen Winslow II, the former NFL player, facing a series of charges after accusations from 5 separate women. Attorney Lisa Wells is with me here on the Law and Crime Network. So Lisa, we've got the defense case, we've got a private investigator, and he's trying to line up exactly how long it took for him to go from location A to B to C, these locations all coming from the testimony of Jane Doe number 1. Where's the defense going with this? I
assume that he's trying to say that there are people that in seconds could be right there on the scene, that that there's it's so near entrances and exits that it doesn't hurt that her story isn't plausible. Of course, as a prosecutor, I would be able to argue with that as well, but the defense is trying to make it look like it just couldn't happen the way she described it, because there's so much activity and people could be there so quickly.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about where they're going with this as well. Could it be used to discredit? Are they trying to use to say, look, it couldn't have happened here because they could have been found? We'll have to wait and see where the defense goes. We'll take a quick break and be back with more in a moment.